This presentation will highlight my project on a innovative use of technology, and I specifically looked at Snapguide in the chemistry classroom. Prior to the project, I had never even heard of Snapguide, but I've learned a great deal through my research and development of lesson plans. Snapguide is a free iOS application and web service that can be used to create and share step-by-step how-to guides or tutorials. You can easily incorporate pictures, videos, and text. So this is the website, and we'll look at it a little bit more closer later in the presentation. Typically, laboratory skills and scientific investigations are essential to any high school chemistry course. Typically, these lab procedures are demonstrated by the teacher, the students observe, and then they attempt to carry out those same procedures. There's some drawbacks of this traditional method. Due to the large number of students in a class, it's difficult for the teacher to observe each and every student and then provide feedback. The assessments are typically paper and pencil, laboratory reports, quizzes, or tests, and these don't evaluate laboratory or problem-solving skills. And then finally, students are not able to share their experiences with their peers, their parents, or members of the scientific community. The Snapguide application overcomes each of these obstacles. It provides teachers the opportunity to observe each student's lab technique and then provide feedback. The students are assessed based on applying their knowledge, demonstrating that they can carry out the skill, and then they're also creating a product. Snapguide also makes it very easy for students to share their work with others. And it's free and easy to create a guide, and all the students need is an iPhone. This project is centered on students utilizing Snapguide to create two guides. Lesson 1 will focus on foundational laboratory skills, and then Lesson 2, students will create a guide to chronicle a laboratory investigation. The objectives of these two lessons address multiple domains in Bloom's taxonomy of learning. Under the category of understanding and comprehension, students will describe and summarize laboratory skills and procedures. Under application, students will demonstrate the laboratory skills. Analysis, students will break down a process into its most simple components in real time. And then in synthesis or creating, students will design and create the guide. The first lesson that I'm going to talk about is using Snapguide to create a chemistry laboratory skill tutorial. Foundational to successful lab experiences are certain lab skills or processes that students can easily learn and then repeat. Whether they're measuring the mass of an object with a triple beam balance or using a graduated cylinder to quantify liquid volume, these procedures need to be consistent between each student so that the data is reliable and can be compared. So the problem is, how can I effectively convey the process for foundational laboratory skills to my chemistry students? Many adults and students learn better if they're looking at pictures or actually watching a video of how something's carried out rather than reading about it, how it should be done. A guide that includes pictures and or video of the actual steps of the tasks so the students can see their results match the process can be very helpful. So the solution to this problem, the students are going to work in small groups to create a snap guide illustrating a foundational lab skill. And then each individual student will view the guide so that they can learn to carry out the laboratory skills consistently. The technologies involved in carrying out this lesson are an iOS device. Each student group will need one that has a digital camera and internet capability. The teacher and students will need to download the Snapguide application and create an account. Because the students will be using an internet connection in the classroom, there needs to be a reliable school network with wireless internet. Each student will also need access to an iOS mobile device or a computer with internet service and supported browser so that they can view the guides. And possible peripheral resources would be a classroom projector, Apple TV, and a VGA cable if the teacher wanted to display the guides in class. What kind of skills does the teacher need to carry out this lesson? They should have proficiency utilizing web resources and iOS applications. The teacher should also spend considerable time becoming familiar with Snapguide and try and create their own guide. This will help when they're training the student on the application, and then also help the teacher to troubleshoot and answer student questions during the lesson. And the teacher should also have some experience creating and implementing a platform to share student work, such as a class website or a wiki. As far as skills or knowledge that the students will need for the lesson, they need to know how to use an Apple mobile device, how to create an account and use the Snapguide application. They need to be able to take photographs and video with a digital camera. They should also be able to annotate the photos and video utilizing professional and or educational language. They need to know how to share the guide on multiple platforms, how to embed the guide in a website or a wiki. They also need to be able to access and view the guides, and then have some practice commenting on the work of their peers. What will the students be producing exactly? They will work in small student groups, as I mentioned, and they're going to choose a foundational lab skill from a list prepared by the teacher. Once they've chosen a skill, they will work together to create a snap guide, which includes a list of the materials needed for the skill, a picture and description of each step, and then finally a short video of the skill. Once the snap guide is complete, the group will embed the guide into the class laboratory skills wiki, and then each individual student will view and provide a thoughtful comment on each guide. As far as carrying out this lesson, it will take place in 4 parts. The first is that the students will complete an introductory activity, which I created, called Snap Guide as a Snap. And I have linked this document to my class wiki. So under this project, which I'm discussing in this presentation, I've created a Word document called Snap Guide as a Snap that's going to walk the students through and get them acquainted with the application and how it works. Really, this application is amazing for use on the iPhone. I wish that I could show that through the presentation, but we will take a little bit of a look at the website just so you can get ideas. But this would be the introductory activity. But let's take a look at the application. So there's guides about pretty much any topic under the sun. So I think first students should just kind of peruse around and look at guides that maybe they're interested in. I found one called How to Hang a Sweater that I thought was pretty interesting, because I'm always wondering how to hang one so that you don't get ruin the sweater from the hanger itself. So when students click on the guide, you can see the cover photo with the title, and then there's a short summary of what the guide is going to be about. The students can comment on the entire guide here. You can see it can be printed or embedded in another platform. By clicking on starting the guide, you can see that this guide has 8 steps, step 1, and we're on step 1 of 8. And then you can easily scroll through each step. You can see there's an image and then a short description with each step. In addition to commenting on the guide itself, you can see there are comments just on each individual step. You can also like the guide as a whole by clicking on this heart here. So it's pretty interesting. I never knew how to hang a sweater so that you didn't get those bumps on there. But if we go through each of those steps, and you come to the very last slide, you can see the creator of the guide. If we like what this author has created, you can follow their future guides here, much like you follow individuals through Facebook or Twitter or Pinterest. To close the guide, we just click on this X. I also wanted to show you a second guide that incorporates video. And typically the guides will also include a list of materials. The sweater one did not. But you can see on the main page of the front page of the guide, now there is also an option for supplies. Oops. So what do you need to carry out the guide itself? This one is how to decorate your nails for spring, apparently. But I did want to show that you can include a video step here. Okay, so that just gives you a little bit of an idea about how that it can include video as well. And then we'll look at that a little bit more, talk about video a little bit more in a later slide. So that's the first part of the assignment, or the lesson, excuse me, that they will work, each student individually will work through that activity. In part 2, now they're ready to create the guide, so they will work in small groups of 2 to 3. Again, choose a lab skill from the list provided, and then they will work on a second assignment called Create a Snapguide. And again, this is linked to my project in the wiki and as a Word document. But we'll also, now that they're familiar with Snapguide, this document will walk them through how to actually create it. It's going to take a second to open. Let's close this one that we're not using anymore. There we go. So this document is going to walk them through each of the steps of creating their own guide. I've included screenshots of what it will look like on their iPhone to help them along. Again, I wish that we could also look at the phone, but since we can't, we will take a look at how you would create a guide online. So if we click on Create a Guide, the first thing that you have to do is title your guide. It always starts with How To by default, and then you have up to 50 characters to title your guide. So I'm going to call this How to Make a Snap Guide, and then start making your guide. Okay, now we're on the editor page. Each step of the guide is going to be on a separate page, and you start with 2 default pages, your title or the cover, and then the list of the supplies. We can start by editing either of these 2 or begin adding steps. I tend to start with my supplies list, so if we click on that, and you can add a supply. I really like it because for each supply you can enter the title, of what the item is, and then it has an option for units, which I really like, especially in chemistry, that we can quantify the amount. If you click Add Supply, it's added to your list, and then you can go to a second one. Again, if we make a mistake, we can delete that at any time. So that's how we add a supply. If we want to get out of that, we can close. As far as editing the cover, you can choose a picture, and that's the image that users will see when they're exploring for your Snapguide. Again, because we're on the web version, you would have to select pictures from the library on your computer, and it will just upload right away. It takes a long time though, so I don't want to do that at this point. It's even easier on the iPhone though, because you just take it right from your camera roll. Once you choose a cover picture, you're going to add a brief summary of what the guide is about. I'm just going to put the same